the man. 10 Things I Hate About You, The Lion King. The bard's tales are as alive now as they were when he first penned them. The lessons of each story are timeless. Professor Moran from the University of Dallas is here to explain how these stories are still relevant 400 years later.
Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you very much for coming. My greatest joy in life is just to talk about Shakespeare. And so I can get a room full of people who want to hear about Shakespeare. I'm thrilled. And I want to follow up exactly on what the introduction said about the timelessness of Shakespeare. Why do we call Shakespeare a classic? Okay? What does that mean that something's a classic? Here's one answer. I don't know if this is the perfect answer, but I think this is one answer for why something we would call a classic. It's better the second time around. Can you hear me? If I tend to scream when I talk. Okay. It's better the second time around. Okay? One way of speaking of something as a classic, it's better the second time around. I'm guessing all of you have a favorite movie that you loved it the first time, but the fourth time you like it even more than the first time, right? And the sixth time you like it even more, right? My guess is that there are other movies that you saw and you loved it the first time, and then you watched it the second time and you said to yourself, why did I like that the first time, right? That the movie was good for one viewing and then got worn out. Does that make sense? In my job teaching at the University of Dallas, I'm fortunate that I teach great literature. But we experiment, kind of the classics, Milton and Homer, etc. We experimented about 15 years ago teaching a modern poem, which is actually a good modern poem. The first time I taught it, I said, fantastic, we need to keep this in the curriculum. This is great. And the second time I taught it, I went, there wasn't anything new the second time around. Like the first time I taught it, I kind of had exhausted everything that there was in this epic poem. And so what I'd say is, why are some things better the second time around, the fifth time around, the eighth time around? They've got so much in them. There's this complexity that when you read the work, each time something more comes out. And what you've discovered the previous times, you see again, but now you see it in a whole new light because there's something you hadn't seen before. And the work keeps building and building and building each time you read it. Does that make sense? As like why some things appeal to us and we want to go back and back. There's so much there. There's complexity. Okay? The same with some cities. There's this great line from an 18th century English writer, Samuel Johnson. He says, if one grows tired of London, one grows tired of life. And London is the city that has so much going for it that you should never get tired of London. I think Rome is one of those cities. And I think when William Shakespeare wrote the play Julius Caesar, he chose for this very complex play a very complex city because he saw how he could explore the complexities of politics through this most complex city. So the city of Rome itself is like a book that you want to go back to. I'm very fortunate. I'm going to tell you when I finish about this high school program I run. We would love to have Bishop Lynn students on it. This program to study some of Shakespeare's plays set in Italy at our campus in Italy. We'd love to have some Bishop Lynn students. But whether you can come or not, one of the really neat things about Rome, which you as a child of Western civilization should know about, is that Rome is the city that is the eternal city because there are so many layers to it. There's so much complexity to it that if you walk around Rome today, you'll still see evidence of pre-Republican Rome and Republican Rome 2,000 years ago, and Imperial Rome 1,800 years ago, and Medieval Rome, and Renaissance Rome, and Baroque Rome, which is the best, that's the 17th century, and 19th century Rome. The different buildings as you walk down the street are from different eras. Here's the most perfect example of this complexity, which I think appeals to Shakespeare. This layering of the city. It's the 21st century, okay? And what does every city need in the 21st century? A McDonald's, okay? There are now McDonald's in Rome. And there's a McDonald's by the train station in Rome. And the bathroom of the train station McDonald's is built into a 3rd century wall. Isn't that just fantastic? I mean, you've probably here in Dallas, you've seen bathroom walls that look like they haven't been cleaned since the 3rd century, okay? But an actual 3rd century AD wall, it's a McDonald's, okay? To give you a sense of the layering, the complexity. Okay? So if Shakespeare wants to think about politics and culture, if he wants to think about why does a city fall apart? Why does a nation fall apart? Why does a nation change its government? Okay? What's going on in the minds of men and women that they would change their way of life? And, well, what kind of way of life should we have? What kind of political ordering should we have? Should we have a republic? Should we have an empire? Should we have a monarchy, etc.? Well, Rome, because it's so complex, has so many layers, ends up being the perfect city. Okay? And so Shakespeare writes his very complex play of Julius Caesar, drawing upon something that's already complex to explore politics, which is incredibly complex. So what I'd like to do is one scene, the opening scene of Julius Caesar, which from what I understand, you study here at Bishop Lynch, right? Okay. You already know Julius Caesar. But what's wonderful about Julius Caesar and 36 other Shakespeare plays is that the second time you get even more, and the 4th time you get even more, and the 8th time you get even more. So let's do this. Could I get 3 volunteers? Anybody who's got the acting bug? 3 volunteers to read, okay. 1, come on up. 2, come on up. And can I get a 3rd person? Come on up. Go. And we're just going to read the one scene. And I'm feeling saucy today, so I'm going to read the saucy cobbler, the second commoner. So, Jim, you're coming up here. And how do you feel? There are the 2 tribunes, these are the representatives of the people. You guys want to do the 2 tribunes? Yeah, you're going to be the song. So the other one, think of something that makes you upset. And first commenter, yes, and so we're just going to read this scene, and then as we read it, I want you to think about what are the complexities. And in fact, if anybody wants to offer thoughts on things you find complex, find difficult, please do. I'll share a few complexities that I'm already finding here. We're going to have the 2 tribunes of the people. These are the representatives of the people against the aristocrats. The tribunes are actually supposed to be the defenders of the people. And then we're going to be 2 common people here. Flavius, get us started. Which one of you? Do you want to be Flavius and you can be Marolus?
Okay.
So Flavius, please get us started.
Hence, hum, you idle creatures, get you hum. Is this a holiday? What? No, you not. Being mechanical, you ought not why. Upon a laboring day without the sign of your profession. Speak, what trade art thou?
Why, sir, a carpenter.
Where is thy leather apron and thy boot? What dost thou with thy best apparel on? You, sir, what trade are you?
Truly, sir, in respect of a fine workman, I am but, as you would say, a cobbler.
But what trade art thou? Answer me directly.
A trade, sir, that I hope I may use with a safe conscience, which is indeed a mender of bad souls.
What trade thou knave? Thou mighty knave, what trade?
Hey, I beseech you, sir, be not out with me. Yet, if you be out, sir, I can mend you.
What meanest thou by that? Mend me, thou saucy fellow.
Why, sir, come.
Thou art a cobbler, art thou?
Truly, sir, all that I live by is with thee all. I meddle with no tradesman's matters nor woman's matters, but withal, I am indeed, sir, a surgeon to old shoes. When they are in great danger, I recover them. As proper men as ever trod upon neat's leather have gone upon my handiwork.
But wherefore art not in thy shop today? Why dost thou lead these men about the streets?
Truly, sir, to wear out their shoes, to get myself into more work. But indeed, sir, we make holiday to see Caesar and to rejoice in his triumph.
Wherefore rejoice. Conquest brings thee home. What tributaries fall into Rome? To grace in captive bonds his chariot wheels. Block, you stone, you worse than senseless things. O you hard hearts, you cruel men of Rome. Knew you not, Pompey? May a time and oft have you climbed up the walls and battlements, to towers and windows, yea, to chimney tops, and there has set a long day with patient expectation. To see great Pompey pass the streets of Rome, and when you saw his chariot but appear, have you not made a universal shout that Tiber trembled underneath her banks? To hear the replication of your sounds made in her concave shores, and you now put on the best attire, and you now call out a holiday, and you now strew flowers in his way. That comes in triumphs over Pompey's blood. Be gone. Run to your houses, fall on your knees, pray to the gods to intermit the plague. That needs must light on this regret.
Go, go, good countrymen, and for this fall, assemble all the poor men of your swords. Draw them to Tiber banks and weep your tears, into the channel, to the low stream. Deepest, the most exalted shores of all. See whether their bases metal be not moved. They vanish tongue-tied in their guiltiness. Go you down that way towards the capital. This way will I disrobe their images, if you do find them decked with ceremonies.
May we do so, you know it is the feast of blood of all.
It is no matter, let no images be hung with Caesar's trophies. I will bow, and drive away the vulgar from the streets, so do you too, where you perceive them thick. These growing feathers plucked from Caesar's wings will make him fly in ordinary pitch. Who else would soar above the view of men, and keep us all in servile fearfulness?
Thank you very much. This is a great opening scene. And be you somebody who ends up reading Shakespeare your whole life, and I hope you're one of those people who's going to be reading Shakespeare your whole life. Whatever it is you read, when you read great literature, pay very close attention to the opening scene, even opening lines. Great writers often like to pack a lot into the very beginning of a work. So don't, read it, get down to the basic gist of things, but it's a really valuable thing to try to understand a work, to then go back to the very beginning and slowly read it. Go over it a couple of times. Draw out as much as you can from the introduction, an opening scene. Because authors like to announce kind of key themes that they're going to be dealing with. They like to set a tone. Often they'll introduce important characters. In this play, no. These four characters you just saw on stage here, you'll never see them again. Sorry, the two of you, you're about to die. The tribunes get killed off immediately. We never see them again. We just hear that they're killed off. And then these two commoners, we never see them again. And so we begin with this kind of puzzle. Wait, the play is called Julius Caesar. Everybody's heard of Julius Caesar, right? One of the most important men in the history of the world. And there's also at this time people like Brutus, and we'll meet him in the next scene. And there's Mark Antony, right? These famous people. But no, we don't begin with them. And so we already have something odd, kind of a puzzle. Why not begin with our main characters? I'm still not quite sure about that one. One thought may be that we're getting a wider perspective on Rome, not giving us the main characters. But whatever the case, did you notice how I just asked a question immediately about this opening scene? That I immediately had something to go, wait, why not Julius Caesar? Why not Brutus? Why not Mark Antony? Why these no-name characters who are all going to be gone immediately from this play? That's another thing I encourage you to do in reading Shakespeare and in trying to wrestle with the complexity of Shakespeare. Articulate questions to yourself. Okay? That if you, here's what I tell my freshmen at the University of Dallas. Be a graffiti artist in your book. I don't know if you actually rent your books. If you rent them, you have to give them back. Okay, don't be a graffiti artist in your book. But it's really nice sometimes to what I was saying about a good slow reading, to take things in. Write in the margins of your book your questions. Yeah, you may have been taught that it's a good idea to sometimes underline, highlight important passages. Even better, as a way of kind of engaging with what you're reading, ask questions about what you're reading. In fact, again, the most ambitious authors, Shakespeare, Dante, John Milton, will deliberately confuse you. Have you ever read a book and what is this author doing? Why is this author writing this scene that so confuses me? Maybe he's doing that on purpose. Good authors will often do that. Because then it makes you stop and think about something puzzling. And who knows, maybe you'll never be able to have an answer for your question. But maybe out of your puzzlement, you'll figure something out. And you'll arrive at a deeper understanding. So try to say, what's complex? What's puzzling me? And here's another one. Okay, look very carefully at our scene. Why are the tribunes angry with the people? Supposed to be working. What are you doing making a holiday of Julius Caesar's return to Rome? Right? Get back to work. Okay? The opening lines there. Hence home, you idle creatures, get you home. Is this a holiday? Yeah, actually it is. Did you pick up on that? At the very end, towards the very end, Marollos' last speech on the back page. Marollos, when he's told to disrobe the images, that is all the statues of Caesar that his supporters have put around town and that they've decked out with nice garments. Marollos says, may we do so? You know it is the feast of Lupercal, a holiday. I have the note there, this ancient Roman fertility feast. Huh? Wait. So the tribunes are telling people, get back to work. Is this a holiday? What are you supposed to be working today? And then the scene ends with our finding out that, yeah, it is a holiday. Do you see what I mean about finding something puzzling? Now that puzzle is so obviously a puzzle that I think Shakespeare, in fact, wants us to notice it and to go, huh? What's going on here? This may seem a minor matter, what day of the year it is, but actually, in Shakespeare's time, this was kind of a big deal. Okay, so why do we read Shakespeare? The complexity that ends up being relevant, not just to this book that we're reading, but to Shakespeare's own time. He's not just talking about ancient Rome, and maybe something relevant to our time. I don't know how well you know your 16th century history, but that's the time of the Reformation in England. Okay? England had been a Catholic country and then kind of slowly and awkwardly transitions into becoming a predominantly Protestant country. There's still a significant Catholic minority. People like many of them become martyrs, St. Edmund Campion. You may know St. Thomas More. And so England is this country that's riven by religious disputes, and there's acts of uncharity, terrible things done. There was briefly a Catholic monarch, Mary, who persecuted Protestants, and the Protestant monarch Elizabeth persecuted the Catholics. It's awful that in the name of Christ, people beheading, burning each other as heretics. Terrible stuff. But as part of this whole scene, this whole development, Queen Elizabeth was trying to kind of move England away from its Catholic past, changes the calendar. And she takes off of the calendar lots of traditional feast days of saints. Okay? So the old religious holidays get taken off the calendar. And then new secular holidays get added to the calendar, such as the day that Elizabeth becomes queen is now a national holiday every year, kind of like our 4th of July. Does that make sense? That it would be like the equivalent of getting rid of Good Friday, but adding, I don't know, Flag Day as you know, a day that you get off at Bishop Lynch, okay? So next year, imagine you got to go to school on Good Friday, but you have Flag Day off. Does that analogy work? Okay? Can you see how this would be on people's minds? Well, Shakespeare's not writing a political pamphlet, but do you see how he's giving us this kind of puzzling thing, but it's got a resonance for his time? And by the way, this is the kind of stuff that's resonant with our time. Just a little example. I remember a few years ago, Major League Baseball, I'm a big baseball fan, I see a Lynch baseball player here. Major League Baseball for the first time had opening day on Good Friday. And I think it was like 20 years ago. It was still John Cardinal O'Connor was the Bishop of New York, and he said, please don't start the season on Good Friday. This is the most, a day of quiet, sadness for Catholics and other Christians. And basically, no, we got our schedule. So you see how playing with the calendar is actually a really profound thing for a culture? It really says what are a culture's values. Now what Shakespeare's doing in this play by alluding, I don't know, is to see the complexity there, right? Giving you more to think on. I don't know if any of you feel like contributing, but does anybody find anything else complex, difficult, that you want to puzzle over, that's already gotten you going, what's going on here? I'll share another one. Hence, you idle creatures. Hence, home, you idle creatures. Get you home. Shakespeare loves punning. Okay? I don't know if you have classmates who pun constantly, and you probably want to slap them upside the head. They make atrocious puns, and you have to groan through them. Okay, you probably would have wanted to slap Shakespeare upside the head if you feel that way. He makes atrocious puns. Did you like how our cobbler was punning? He's a mender of bad souls. Right? That's a pretty good one, right? He fixes shoes, but we already have this idea of people's souls are wrong in Rome. There's something wrong inside of people. Well, we get a pun in that first line. Does anybody get it? You idle creatures. What do the common people want to do? Thank you. There you go. Perfect. They want to worship Julius Caesar like he's an idol, like a god. Right? And they've got statues all over Rome that are decked with fancy garments. Right? You idle creatures. Idle, you're not working. You idolatrous creatures. You want to take a politician and make a politician into a god. Okay. Back to the timelessness of Shakespeare, right? Think of the 20th century, you know some of your modern history, right? And the kind of the totalitarian regimes in Russia, in Nazi Germany, etc., where there was a cult of personality of Joseph Stalin or Adolf Hitler, right? Where the ruler is understood as this kind of godlike figure above us all. This is one of these perennial anxieties in politics. So, is the play then going to be an attack on Julius Caesar as the man who's going to ruin Roman liberties? I don't know, actually. Once we meet the people who were Caesar's enemies, they're not much better. Right? We don't have the guys who are clearly wearing the white hats. We don't have the guys who are clearly wearing the black hats, right? Like in old cowboy movies, right? We don't know who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. It's not so obvious. Shakespeare's not going to simplify life for us. Life is complex, right? You always got to keep asking yourself questions. You always got to keep investigating and looking at the details and puzzling over things. And so Shakespeare is going to take on political questions. This famous example of history of the old Roman Republic collapsing and becoming an empire, and he won't give us any easy answers. And that's the joy of reading Shakespeare, is he's going to make you recognize the complexity of the world we live in, a world that's even more complex than ever. Before I talk about, let me just check the time. Before I talk about my possibility of studying more Shakespeare, does anybody have any questions or thoughts about this opening scene from Julius Caesar? Okay. If you don't mind a couple of minutes of your time, if any of you might be interested, you'll see a slideshow going on behind me here. The University of Dallas has programs in the summertime for students to study great books, earn 3 hours of college credit, which is valuable at a private university like the University of Dallas. We've had students earn these 3 hours of credit and then go to colleges all over America, Ivy Leagues, Stanford, etc. We've got 3 programs that we offer. One here in Dallas at our campus in Irving, a program called Arete. And it's this program where we read the best things ever written. Shakespeare, of course, but also Plato and St. Augustine and modern philosophers like Nietzsche, all while examining this question of what makes for human excellence. Arete is the Greek word for excellence. So if you're interested in studying here at the University of Dallas's campus in Irving, join us this summer. It's a great program, and it's a preparation for college. We have 2 other programs, and come join us. And actually, join my program. My program's the best. I have a program called Shakespeare in Italy. There's another program at our Rome campus called Latin in Rome. So if any of you have a couple of years of Latin, want to keep studying Latin, I encourage you to look into that. Shakespeare in Italy is, well, the title kind of gives it away, right? Shakespeare is fascinated with Italy. He sets Julius Caesar in Rome. He sets Merchant of Venice in Venice. Taming of the Shrew, the 3rd play we read, set in Padua. And so we consider Shakespeare's fascination with Italy. And so we read these Italian plays while living at the University of Dallas's campus just outside of Rome, where Mr. Kirsch, is that right, has lived there for a month, and he can tell you how gorgeous it is. And we study Shakespeare. And what Shakespeare has to teach us about the complexity of life, about the complexity of ourselves, that we look at Shakespeare as the greatest teacher about what it means to be a human being. So it's one of the great values, that's the greatest value of the program. But, well, you know, we're in Italy too, and that's awfully nice. But we don't just kind of wander around like aimless tourists. I lived in Italy for a couple of years. The other professor, who was, I think, Miss Bredeman's teacher, Dr. Roper was her teacher, he lived in Italy for 5 years. We know Italy very well. And we lead you around Rome, Venice, Padua. But actually our real tour guide there is William Shakespeare. We use our plays to look at these cities, these very different cities, so that these cities we can kind of read, and we use them as a classroom, a second classroom. Ancient Rome, a city devoted to honor and power. Venice, a city devoted to money. Venice is often thought of as the first modern city. You've seen pictures of Venice from movies. It's astonishing. I always love bringing students there. Their jaws drop when they first see Venice. And so, the modern city, all about money, and the wonderful things that money can do. I haven't been to your school in 15 years. You have some very generous benefactors who have built this beautiful auditorium. Right? You can't do wonderful things like that without generous people. People who have made money and can do good things with their money. Right? But of course, there are always problems too with pursuing money. And Shakespeare presents that to us. So we examine that with Merchant of Venice. And then Padua. I don't know if any of you have read Taming of the Shrew. It is a silly comedy, lighthearted. It's a romantic comedy. It's also a great play about education. Padua was the great university city of Italy. And it's a play about education, obviously of importance for you at this stage of your life. Now that you're old enough to start thinking about your own education. So, Shakespeare, and then seeing these great cities through the eyes of Shakespeare. two other real values to our program, if you might be interested. The first is college preparation. We offer 3 hours of college credit. It's a college course for high school students, but it's a college course, and we make you earn those credits. We have you write a couple of papers, and we work with you in a one-on-one on your papers. So Dr. Roper, my colleague, or I will work with you so that when you go off to college, you've already written college-level essays. What typically happens, even at great schools like Bishop Lynch, students go off to college, and that first essay, there's the tyrannical college professor, and he's going to give everybody a C-. Or about 80% of the students a C- or a D+. Really, that happens. What we're going to try to do is get you in the position that you don't have to have that first or second or third bad grades. We work with you one-on-one on your writing so that there's a real academic value to the program. And we also work with you on your reading skills, how to read Shakespeare closely, thoughtfully. And the fourth value of the program, if you might be interested in joining us, is French. We get students from all over the country. We've had some Lynch students. It's been a couple of years actually since we've had a Lynch student. We'd love to have another. We have students from other Dallas high schools. We have kids from the West Coast, East Coast. 2 years ago, we had 4 Floridians. You get to meet great students from all over the country, people who maybe like you, love Shakespeare, love it, want to see Italy, want to learn. And in those 2.5 weeks, the intensity of the program brings people together so that after it ends, not only do the friendships continue on Facebook or via email, but actually people fly over to, we had this one girl from Dallas who'd fly to New York City because she made really close friends with a girl in Manhattan. If you're interested in our program, come talk to me afterwards. I've got brochures and you can take a look at that. You can take that home and take a look at it. Whatever the case, it's been a delight to be here. I'm glad to see that your school is thriving, and thank you for your time.
Oh, don't go anywhere yet.
Real quick.
It'll take just a couple of minutes, so don't go anywhere yet. First, where is Marie? Ms. Phillips, the stage is yours first, and then I'll give the closing remarks.
Hi, I'm Marie Phillips and a member of the Bishop Lynch Shakespeare Society. And we were hoping to use this opportunity this great opportunity to talk about the Shakespeare competition, which is coming up January 22nd. It will take place after school. It's a Wednesday. For those of you that don't know what the Shakespeare competition is, it's an acting competition. Students can take a monologue or a sonnet from the works of William Shakespeare and present it here in the McGonagall Theater, and their work will be critiqued and judged, and they'll know what place they got. And if you win, you go to the Dallas Branch competition, which is a really cool and fun opportunity. And like, let's say you won that, you get to go to New York City for the national competition. So I've gotten the opportunity to participate in this competition my freshman and sophomore year, and I've also gotten the opportunity to go to the Dallas Branch competition. And I think if you like enjoy performing or anything, I definitely recommend it. It's a lot of fun, and you have a lot to learn from it as an actor, because well, you can see national competition pieces online, and the best ones there are ones where you can completely understand them, despite it being Shakespeare. Like, you just watch it, and you know that Queen Margaret is like, has a cloth stained with the blood of York's son, and that and she's saying like, oh, you want to cry? Here, cry on this. And because I never read the play, but I knew that's what she was talking about, and that in Two Noble King's Men, that the jailer's daughter was completely crazy about the guy that was in jail, and that she had a plan that she was going to set him free because she became completely infatuated with him. And when you're, and it's my opinion, and that when you're able to do something like that, do something where most people, when they read text like that, are just like, what? And then make it understandable and comprehensible and relatable and overall really interesting, then you've made like a huge accomplishment there, and you can do almost anything else as an actor. So if you're like even slightly interested, I would recommend it because it's fun and there's not too much to memorize. So we'll be having a meeting tomorrow at 8:50 during B block in room 129. There you will get information about suggested sonnets and packet materials and all that kind of stuff. And but if you can't go to the meeting, of course, stop in by room 129 or talk to me or Miss Raymond or any other Shakespeare Society member and feel free. So thank you very much.
Jack, I think we found your calling. All right, I'm only going to take a minute before we get out of here. It's just a little bit after 5, and there's plenty of activities going on, soccer games, basketball games, etc., etc. All right, just like last time, who attended the first lecture series? All right, not much has changed. Go to the Bishop Lynch homepage. At the top, go to the bar for academics. When you hover over that, scroll down just a little bit, you'll see the Leiden Lecture Series. Click on there. All right, go to the Leiden Lecture Series page. Over on the left-hand side, there is the banner for the lecture series. Just underneath that, it says Student Submission. Click on Student Submission. That is a Google Doc. There are 4 questions, 3 of which are very easy. The first question is your first name. Second question is a little bit tougher. It is your last name. The third one is ridiculous. It is your grade level. That may take some studying, but the last one has a little box in the middle, and that is for your reflection. All right, your impression upon today, something you learned today. Okay, so the whole thing won't take you very long. A few minutes. It'll be timed and date stamped with your name. I can cross-reference against those that obviously were scanned in today. Or if we had to manually put your name in, that way we know you were here and you did that. I'll leave the Google Doc open for a week and a half or 2 weeks, so definitely by February 1st it will be shut down. If you don't do it, I can't guarantee you'll get credit from any of your teachers because I do follow up and send that information out.
It's on Blackboard?
Smiley, you're in charge of him. Okay? If there are any questions that he has, you must first ask her. If she deems it necessary, she'll relay it. Got that, Smiley? You're in charge. Are there any other questions?